Kaname is a normie loser who, for better or worse, has never heard of the Hunger Games. He wishes he had when his life turns into one after getting baited into opening the cursed game icon on his smartphone. One night, we see Kaname's friend, Hamada, running in the streets as if he has a psychopath behind him, and well, it turns out he actually does. It's a furry freak wearing a bear mascot helmet, and he's chasing after him with a knife. Hamada wonders who he can call for help and thinks about his friend Kyoda, but then says that he can't trust him enough, so he calls Kaname instead. But sadly, he runs into a dead end and the furry dude catches up to him. He tries to fight back instead of pissing his pants and throws a bunch of paper cutters at him like some kindergartner, and the furry guy simply dodges the blades and then cuts his neck like a pro. After that, he stands there and looks at his noob ass that just got skill gaped and lost. The following morning, we see Kaname checking out some cool second-hand heavy bikes online while wondering about his broke ass and empty pockets. Just then, his friend Yoda comes close and asks him if he saw the street art outside the station. He says that recently, his street arts of pixelated body outlines have been popping up everywhere in Shibuya and people are going nuts over it. He shows him some pictures and thinks how creepy and interesting it was. Just then, their friend Hiroyuki walks in and asks them if they have seen Hamada's dead ass anywhere. They say that maybe he is absent, and then ask him how he and Hamada got their new bikes, and if they got some sweet part-time job somewhere. Hiroyuki says that it's nothing like that and tells them to let him know if they see Hamada anywhere. Just then, Kaname says that he got some weird notification from him last night and decides to check it just now. He sees that it's a download link to some kind of free-to-play mobile game and instantly opens it like a nerd. The name of the game is Darwin's Game, and they wonder if Hamada just got hooked on it, and that's why he's skipping school. Knowing what it's all about, Hiroyuki turns around and tells Kaname to not open the app, and just like your typical League of Legends player, he decides to do exactly the opposite of that and launches the game. Suddenly, a snake comes out of the screen and bites his neck, and Kaname falls on the ground like some Dragon Ball Z NPC. Meanwhile, the screen on the mobile reads that he was confirmed as a new player, and that his friend Hamada is already dead, and the game will begin in an hour. His friends carry his dumb ass to the infirmary and get him to a bed. He sleeps for a little while and comes back to his senses soon. The nurse tells him to go back to his class if he's feeling alright, but he says that he is feeling awful and fills out a form for an early leave. After that, he walks out and meets up with Hiroyuki and Yoda, who are also planning to ditch the class. Yoda suggests that they go for karaoke, but Hiroyuki walks up close to Kaname and says that there is something serious that he wants to discuss about the game Hamada sent him, and that he will come to meet him at his house tonight. Kaname wonders what his weeb ass is saying, but says ugh and lets him walk away. He then goes to enjoy the day with Yoda. Later that afternoon, while riding the train back home, he decides to do the dumbest shit he could do and opens the game app, doing exactly the opposite of what his friend literally warned him about just a couple hours ago. He sees his chibi character on the screen and says that he was just making a fuss about it and it's just a normal game. His battles and wins counter red 0 with the start button below. He presses it and queues up and instantly gets paired with the psychotic furry murderer, Banda. Kaname recognizes the furry dude as the local baseball club's mascot and wonders how the game got his name and avatar when he hasn't even made an account yet. Just then, he turns around and sees the real Banda sitting across him on a seat holding a knife in his hand. He gets up and starts walking towards him like a creep and then uses a heavy attack on Kaname with his knife. Kaname dodges sideways and asks what he is doing, but Banda just keeps on attacking him without a word. Kaname blocks his knife with his bag and then kicks him back before running for his life and getting off the train. He runs to a nearby police station and tells the officer that this freak was trying to kill him. The police officer thinks that he is him and tries to stop Banda, but tells him that he is just cannon fodder and cuts him in one strike. He then walks up and goes for the finishing blow on Kaname, but suddenly gets shot by a crossbow in the back. Turns out it's Hiroyuki standing behind him with the weapon. He tells Kaname that he will win the match if he can escape the killer or run out the timer on his screen. Bambi uses invisibility jutsu and disappears from the scene like a weeb's social life. But Hiroyuki tells him to get Sharingan Ed and puts another arrow in his helmet. Banda becomes surprised and his invisibility wears off, but then he charges straight at him like a maniac and stabs him in the stomach. Kaname picks Hiroyuki up and walks out to get him to an ambulance. He asks him what was going on and how did Banda turn invisible, and Hiroyuki explains that it must be the power of his sigil, and that this is Darwin's game. Kaname then takes Hiroyuki to a car parking building and they hide there from the sadistic furry mascot. He tries to call for an ambulance, but Hiroyuki reveals that while in the game he can't make any calls or messages to anyone outside of the game. They both sit there while watching Banda look for them in the area. When two players are in a match, their screens show each other's position, roughly making it easier for the killer to find his prey. Banda eventually narrows their location down to the parking building and walks in while our dudes stay hidden. Kaname receives a message from someone named Shuka, who tells him that she can help him if he wants. Hiroyuki tells him to run away and leave him behind and that he will be much safer with his searchable ass away from him. After hearing this, Kaname runs down and shows himself to Banda and then runs around making him chase after him like some Looney Tunes skit. He eventually leaves Banda to the bathrooms where he hides himself in the lockers. Banda walks in and says psych mother flipper and pulls out a gun from his pocket. He says that he got it from the police officer earlier and starts shooting at all the stalls inside. But just then, Kaname plays the UNO reverse card and jumps on him from behind with a fire extinguisher and pushes him down. He then gets on top of him and starts punching him, but Banda knocks him off with a single punch to his face and then starts walking towards him with his knife and invisibility turned on. Kaname thinks he's done for, but just then plot armor kicks in and Truck-kun sends his little cousin, Car-kun, ridden by a couple of idiots, who run into the invisible furry freak and send him back flying to the wall. After that, they think that they must have hit someone and just drive off in a rush. Once the NPCs are gone, Banda turns back visible and reveals that he has lost. Kaname's screen confirms the fact, and then he sees Banda vanish piece by piece like some pixelated virtual reality as he says that he had fun playing the game unlike his shitty job and vanishes from the scene, leaving behind a pixelated body outline where he died. After that, Kaname remembers that he has a dying friend downstairs and starts running towards him while calling an ambulance. But when he reaches the location, he only sees a body outline there and realizes that Hiroyuki had died. Just then, he receives his final message which tells him to survive. Somewhere on a rooftop, the blonde girl, Shupa, gets a notification that her game friend, Kaname, has defeated Banda and says that she is excited to play the game together with him. The next morning, Kaname wakes up in his house and reads the logs on his game account. They read that he has won a ranked match and has earned 10 points. Besides that, he is ranked up to D3 and his life is still miserable, but he has unlocked the gacha feature. Reading that word, he remembers Asmongold for a moment and then tries his hands at the rare gacha for 1 point and wins a 2-star handgun. Suddenly, he gets a delivery thrown inside his apartment from Amazon. He opens the box and finds a gun inside it and wonders just how messed up this game is. After that, he talks with Shuka on text, and they decide to meet up in an abandoned warehouse at night, and she will fill him in on the details of the game. At first, he is skeptical of going there, but decides to go anyway or else he won't learn anything about the game ever. He leaves his gun behind, but invests all his allowance on a backpack full of self-defense tools. Meanwhile, some players from the 8th clan wipe the floor with some Yakuza members and utterly destroy them by killing everyone, including their boss. They seem to be looking into recent player deaths, and one of them is still a loose end in their case. Later that night, Kaname meets up with Shuka in the warehouse, and she allows him to ask one question before she trusts him fully. He asked her for a way to quit the game, but she says that so far the only way to quit the game is to either die or to win it fully. He thinks that this is all BS, but she says that she didn't make the rules and she's only a player as well. After that, she starts questioning him back and asks him about his sigil. She says that when a new player starts the game, they are bitten by a snake that gives them unique evolutionary powers which allow them to play this game. Even if they don't know when it is, they should be able to use it naturally, and it also tells them on their screen. Kaname checks his screen for the name of his sigil, but it only says error there, and Shuka says that she can't trust someone who doesn't even know their sigil. After that, she plans to attack him, but Kaname blinds her with a flashlight and starts running away for his life. He dashes towards the entrance, but Shuka closes the door with the remote and then attacks him from behind with a modified chain. Kaname runs away and hides behind some pipes, but then Shuka turns on all the lights and runs in the open. He tries to check all exits, but they all turn out to be locked, and Shuka says that he has nowhere to run anymore. She says that she was going easy on him so he could show her his sigil, but looks like it will be a letdown and decides to finish him off with her chains. Her sigil is to be able to control her chains with her mind, and she uses them to chase after him as he runs for his life. While running away, Kaname gets into the mentality of a League of Legends player and starts complaining about the game's design and Riot's balancing team and cries out that just if he had a weapon right now, he would have been able to fight back. Just then, a gun suddenly appears in his hands and he wonders if Mordog has finally listened to his plea and turns around to shoot at Shuka. Shuka becomes surprised by seeing the gun appear in his hands and barely dodges the bullet. After that, Kaname keeps running as Shuka chases after him, and he keeps telling her to call it a draw and that he really doesn't want to fight her. At one point, he gets some time to take a breather and he thinks about what she said about sigil being as natural as breathing. He thinks back on the moment when he made the gun appear in his hand and then uses his sigil to create some tape and wire and sets up a trap for her. After that, he lures her near the electricity box and shoots at her from the gun tapped on a pipe. Shuka dodges the bullet, but it turns off the lights. Kaname reveals that he had his eyes adjusted to the darkness beforehand so he could attack her in the dark, and then rushes towards her while dodging her chains. After getting close, he creates a stun gun in his hands and pushes Shuka down on the ground and then gets on top of her with his handgun pointed at her face. He tells her that he doesn't want her to vanish away bit by bit like the others, and she realizes that he is speaking the truth and actually doesn't know what the whole game was about. She says that it is called Total Points Loss Measure and accepts defeat, and says that she will now obey his orders. Some of her points get transferred to Kaname, and our dude earns his first harem member. Once the fight is over, he falls on her lap and falls asleep and opens his eyes the next day in her bed. After getting up, she tells him that she would like him to make a clan with her in-game. She also tells him about the shelter feature, which allows players to exchange 10 points for having their name removed from the class match competitor list. Kaname checks his balance, and it is at 639 now after winning against Shuka last night. After healing all this, he accepts her request to start a clan, and she says that to create a clan, one must be at least rank B2. He asks her if she shouldn't be the one to create the clan as she is already rank of 4, but she says that in situations like these a boy must take the lead, and we all know where that is going, right? With that, she tells him that she will call them tonight, and they part ways. On his way back, Kaname tries to convert 10 points into cash just to see how it works, and it gets him 1,000,000 yen in his bank account. For you American weebs, it's about $6,700 more than what you have in your account. The following day, Kaname goes to the Moai statue in Shibuya that's covered with a plastic sheet for some reason. Soon, Shuka arrives on the scene and says that they will go on their first date now. He asks her about the event notification they all received. She says that the event will be held right there in Shibuya, and it is just natural for them to get the lay of the land before it starts. She says that for now they will go to Yoyagi Park, and on their way she explains some rules of the game to him. Rule number 1, don't ever tell normies about the game or leak information about it to people outside it. So it's best to refer to it as just the game when you are in public, and some people also call it the D game. She then tells him that he should be especially on guard around Shibuya because recently an incident happened there where 12 people lost and died near the statue that was covered up earlier. The place is also controlled by the 8th clan, so there are usually a lot of players in the area. After that, they go back to the station and check out some malls while Shuka shops for some clothes. Meanwhile, one of the players, called the Analyst, who has been keeping tabs on Kaname and his achievements so far, sells information about him to a member of the Danjo Boxing Club. In return, she asks for information on the recent treasure hunt event notification, and he says that the only thing he knows is that not all players were sent this notification. After that, he heads for the station as he has some plans of his own for Kaname. On the other hand, Kaname is waiting outside for Shuka to finish her makeup and suddenly gets his phone stolen by the boxing club guy who was looking for him. The guy reveals his face and tells him to follow him. On their way, he says that normally a person cannot use someone else's phone to play the game, but it will still be a hassle to have one's phone lost, so he should better follow him quietly. After that, he takes him to an alleyway and says that people are talking about him as the solo noob who took down the infamous furry freak Rookie Hunter and the undefeated Queen. With that, he challenges him to an on-the-spot battle and says that he always wanted to try his hands against a strong player and climb up the ranking ladder. Kaname says that he doesn't want to fight anyone and that he was just sucked into the game without knowing what he was getting into. But the other guy was having none of that sissy BS and started fighting by throwing some trained punches at him. He immediately lands a solid hit on his face and knocks him down flat on the ground. Feeling disappointed, he tells him to call Shuka or whoever changes his diapers and he will wait for them until he finishes him off. But then Kaname says surprise mother flipper and hits him with a stun gun on his leg. He says that he isn't working with anyone and plays alone and prepares to strike him again. The boxing guy wonders where he was keeping this stun gun, and the first thought that crosses his mind is his ass, but then he comes back to his senses and says that it must be related to his sigil. After that, Kaname rushes towards him and tries to hit him with the stun gun again, but he knocks him back with a knee to his face. Kaname falls back and holds his phone hostage by putting his stun gun on it and saying that he will fry it unless he accepts defeat. Meanwhile, Shuka walks out from the bathroom and wonders where her slave boy went, and then gets a call from the analyst girl who tells her that she has looked into the person she asked for and it looks like they don't belong in the Danjo Boxing Club. She then says that she also checked the 8th clan, and while she has little information on their newest member, Sig, she doesn't think that he is their guy. Besides that, she has little to no info on Wang because he has killed everyone who encountered him, and making the dead speak isn't part of her skill set. Shuka says that she will pay her triple the amount if she is able to find info on the person she is looking for, and then the analyst asks her if she wants info on Kaname. Hearing his name, Shuka becomes mad and tells her to give her all the info she has on him and she will let her live. After that, she goes out to find him and sees him fighting the blonde boxer in a street. She immediately starts attacking the boxer with her chains, but he dodges them all. After that, Kaname threatens him once again and the guy surrenders. He then introduces himself as Inukai from the Danjo Boxing Club. He gets his phone back and says that the treasure hunt event is about to begin. They all look at their phone screens and suddenly teleportation boxes wrap around their bodies. Shuka says that it happens before teleportation during events and it looks like they will all be separated. With that, Kaname gets sent to a room inside a hotel, and he looks at his screen and wonders if it's just a normal friendly treasure hunt game. There are a total of 300 players in the game, including Wang, the analyst, and some others. The goal of the event is to collect rings, and anyone who is not able to collect at least 3 rings by the end of the event will have their game over. The Hunger Games Treasure Hunt Edition starts off with a girl in school uniform attacking Wang with a flame attack, but then instantly falling to her death from the rooftop, marking the start of this slaughter fest. On the other hand, Shuka is roaming the streets of Shibuya to find her pet, Kaname, as she comes across the body outline of the girl who fell down earlier. People are gathered around it taking pictures, but then suddenly a high-pitched noise comes from the sky, and once it's over, all the normies start walking back to their homes as if they were hypnotized. Shuka notes that they must not want normies to stick their paws in the event, and so they made them all go away. Back at the hotel, Kaname reads up the instructions for the event, and the snake mascot on the app narrates that this is a treasure hunt event where players can gather a lot of points. The treasure is scattered around in the area in the form of 7 types of different rings with different gems. Each ring can be redeemed for a specific number of points and players can fight for them if they want. All players are set to a Battle Royale mode, but they can't use the search function until the event ends. Besides that, they get access to map display and AR camera apps which will help them in the hunt. Finally, any player who doesn't have at least 3 rings by the end of the event will lose the game and essentially get sent to Narnia, and leaving the event area will also result in instant game over. Kaname sees that there are only 300 rings in this round 1, which means that a third of the players will be left by the end of it, and that alone doesn't sound very fun and friendly. He decides to call his mummy Shuka before he pisses his pants, but the operator on the other end says that he can't do that because they are in-game and you must only contact others by using their buggy in-game chat feature. He then uses the map display app and sees a lot of rings on the map, and then uses the AR camera app to see that the city outside looks like ruins when seen through the app. Besides that, there are red lights at various spots which indicate rings, and one of them happens to be right beside him under the bed in his room. He ducks down and gets the ring, and it turns out to be a golden ring from Sonic the Hedgehog game on SEGA. It looks like a ruby bracelet when viewed from the AR camera app, and it's worth 500 points, which is equivalent to $335,000 more than L's broke ass. He then opens his door to walk out, but starts shitting his pants when he sees a body outline right outside the room. He tries to slide against the wall and avoid it, but gets buried in another outline on the wall and realizes that he is in real trouble. There are more than one player inside the hotel building, and he must run outside if he wants to live. He checks his surroundings with the AR camera app and notices various ring red lights moving around on different floors, meaning they are people who have picked them up. He runs to the elevator to get down, but then uses his brain for once and decides to use the staircase instead. He creates a handgun with his sigil and notices someone coming to his floor. He decides to fight them if he must, but instantly starts regretting when he sees that it's Ghost from Call of Duty, ready to rip him full of holes with his machine gun. He starts running down like anime fodder, but then sees massive tree roots blocking all exits to the ground floor. He starts dashing towards the elevator, but Ghost catches up with his lazy ass and says that it's game over. With no other choice left, he throws his ring at him and says that he has nothing else to give, so it should be enough, but Ghost keeps looking at his ass and wonders if that's true. Our boy, Kaname, realizes what he's thinking and begs for his life, saying that he really doesn't have anything worth his time, but Ghost says that he is holding a gun and anyone ready to shoot a gun should also be prepared to take a bullet themselves. He then tells him bye-bye and prepares to rip him a new hole, but his trigger gets jammed and the gun doesn't shoot. Kaname sees this as an opportunity and turns around with his gun pointed at him and says that he will shoot him if he doesn't surrender. Ghost looks at his nerdy sissy ass and tells him to go ahead and give it a shot, fully knowing that he doesn't have the balls to pull the trigger. He then fixes his gun right in front of him and then points it back. Just then, the elevator arrives and its doors open. Ghost simply walks past him and gets inside and says that perhaps his bullets ain't worth wasting on him and takes his leave. After he's gone, Kaname falls on the ground and wonders what's so fun about killing others, and then says that regardless of all this BS, he must get his hands on 3 rings or else he will die. He comes to terms with his sissy ideals and says that in the end, if he wants to survive in this game, he must kill others, and that's the end of it. Soon, the elevator arrives and he decides to walk in but stops when he hears a young girl talking to him from behind. The girl turns out to be the analyst, and she warns him that if he doesn't want to die, he shouldn't get on the elevator. He says that a kid shouldn't be in this game and says that the staircase is blocked by some weird-ass tree, so the elevator is the only way out. But then he turns around to look inside the elevator and finds Mr. Ghost dead with some vines and branches up his holes. The girl tells him that from this, it is clear that the players inside are trapped by someone with the sigil to control plants, and they are keeping them all hostage. Kaname says that from his earlier scam, he could see over 10 players in the building, and the girl says that there were 25 inside at the start. She then introduces herself as Rin, the analyst, and suggests that as fellow cornered rats, they should team up until they escape this hotel. Meanwhile, somewhere outside the game zone, the Illuminati people gather around to watch this treasure hunt being streamed live. The announcer reveals that the top earner so far is Shuka, with 1,900 points and 6 rings. She was going 49-0 until her defeat at the hands of the Solo Mu, but she is still a strong fighter. In second place, it's the leader of the 8th clan, Wang, with 5 rings, but his clan has over 18 rings altogether. After that, from third place and downwards, it's a free-for-all with lots of things happening in the Shibuya Central Tower, which is wrapped in vines and plants. Just then, the host of the casino arrives and meets up with some rich-looking old dude. He reveals her name to be Themis and introduces herself as the manager of the Trinity. I'm sure God has something to say about that. Anyways, they all look at the screen to enjoy 4 noobs chasing after Shuka, thinking they have advantage over her with their numbers. But Shuka reminds them that worthless noobs with 0 value are all the same no matter how many there are, because 0 multiplied by 4 is still 0. She first kills 2 of them and runs away, letting them waste their breath chasing after her. They shoot at her with their sigils, but she immediately puts them to rest with a single attack and wonders what Kaname is up to. Themis says that she likes Shuka, but the old man says that he prefers boys and she would have been perfect if she were a man. Themis notes his misogynistic ass and says that regardless of all that, the players and viewers all benefit from this event as they fight over money and powerful sigils, and it's certainly a unique experience. Back at the hotel, Rin gives Kaname a motivational speech about the beauty of running away and not killing others, and they both form an alliance for the time being. He goes inside the elevator to see the ghost's body, who's probably a real ghost now, and also copies his machine gun while he's at it. He then walks down the staircase to see if they can get past the roots, but he notes that they would need a chainsaw for that, and he can't create one yet. He then asks about going down the window with a rope or something like in the movies, and Rin tells him that they are up 40 stories, and while he might live with his plot armor, she's just a side character, so there's no way she's taking that route. After that, they all start walking upstairs, and he asks if she knows who might be behind these plants, and she says that she doesn't have enough info to pin it down to a single person, but it's someone called the Florist. He never shows himself and sets traps to kill others with his plants. She says that it means that they will be relatively safe as long as they stay on the upper floors. Hearing this, Kaname wonders if all that's true, because the players in the elevators died, why haven't they been teleported and turned into street art like the others? This means that they are all alive and might come after him. He uses his air camera and sees several players running after them from around the corner. He grabs Rin and starts running back, and they notice that all the players from the elevators have branches coming out of them, and they have teamed up for some reason. Rin throws a flash grenade and stuns them all, and they both run upstairs to get away from them. Kaname uses his phone and notes that they are still chasing after them and wonders how they know of their location when they don't have any rings. Rin says that they might all be being controlled by the Florist using some brainwashing drug from his plants, and they might have some sensory thing to track their location. With no plants around them, it doesn't make sense to Kaname, and he starts looking around and realizes that the Florist is in the surveillance room and has been using the security cameras in the building to keep an eye on them. Kaname shoots down the camera and says that he will go to the surveillance room and get his voyeuristic ass out of there. After that, they both start running around the building and destroy as many cameras as they can. After that, they get inside a locked room which Rin prepared when she first arrived in the building. They start planning their next move and come up with a 2-man plan to distract the Florist with some bombs while the other person finds him and defeats him in a one-on-one battle. Meanwhile, the Florist gets his men to search all the hallways in pairs and clears all floors one by one. Once his men make their rounds, he wonders where the running couple went and narrows down their location to the exact room based on the route they took to destroy the cameras. He wonders if they had some sigil that allowed them to break into a locked room without getting the keys for them, because they are all stored on the first floor, which is blocked by the trees. His men eventually get inside the room, but they find it empty. He notes that there are signs of the couple being here and says that they must be close by, but then suddenly, they all hear a blast from a couple floors below them. He sends his men to the barricade on floor 26's staircase, and we see Rin trying to blow up the routes with some bombs there. The plan doesn't succeed because the roots turn out to be too thick, but it's all within their expectations. She then throws a flash grenade and stuns all the brain-dead players chasing after her, and then uses a stun gun to make her way past them. She starts running upstairs, and we see her dodge bullets like Neo from Matrix. It turns out her sigil is the ability to calculate information of everything around her, including the exact location and effects of each atom in the area. This allows her to predict the future to a certain extent, and is basically a rip-off of the Sharingan. This ability is called Laplace after the demonic concept, and she uses this to gather information about others and sell it to survive in the D game. Besides that, she is also able to dodge attacks and shoot down others as if she has advanced observation haki. She uses her OP abilities to shoot down all the brain-dead men chasing after her, and this makes the florist wonder about her sigil. Meanwhile, Kaname goes wild and climbs down to the first floor using a rope hanging from the window. He gets to the main reception hall and starts walking towards the surveillance room, but then the florist walks out himself and says that he would like to have a chat with the boy before they both start fighting and kill each other over some stupidest game. He then asks him why he is playing the game, and Kaname says that he just got dragged into it. The florist tells him that he is playing for money and a person's life is worth 100 to 200 million yen. That's about $670,000 to $1.35 million for you American brokies. After that, he equips his plant-based armor and starts rushing towards Kaname. He throws a bomb at him, but it does nothing to the plant guy, and he jumps down with a heavy punch that breaks the floor. Kaname jumps back to dodge and tries to shoot at him with his handgun, but plants come out of the ground and knocks the gun out of his hands. Kaname says that it means he can get serious and uses his sigil to create a machine gun that he copied earlier and starts shooting at him with a ton of bullets. But to his surprise, the bullets bounce off his hard armor, and he uses a vine to break the gun in his hands. The florist says that it is checkmate for him as he has seen through his sigil, and that it is the ability to create any weapon he has seen before, but it has a limit to it. Kaname thinks that he is right, and at most he can use his ability a couple of times because of the severe headache and pain he is feeling in his body. He then creates another machine gun and throws a bomb at the plant guy. The florist says that he knew he was going to do it and gets real close to him, ready to punch him down, but Kaname smiles with a flash grenade in his hand with his eyes closed. He uses it to stun him and then vanishes from the sight. He runs away, but the florist catches up to him instantly and sends him back flying with a woody punch in his guts. He stands up and tries to shoot at him, but the florist makes a shield and simply deflects all of his bullets and then knocks him back with another slap from his vine. Kaname falls on the ground and watches him walking towards him like the final boss who won. He thinks if it is the end for him, but then plot armor kicks in and he starts hearing the voice of the man inside him. His sigil speaks to him about how he can not only produce things that he has touched once, but he also gets all the information about that item and how to best use it. The last time he shot at the plant guy, he needed to use his shield, which means he thought of his bullets as a threat. With this information, he should know what to do to pierce through and win this battle. With this internal monologue power up, Kaname stands up and starts shooting at him like a maniac. He makes a modification to the gun by reducing its lifespan for increased pressure and shooting power, which allows his bullets to break right through the woody armor. They both max out their sigil and collapse on the ground, but the florist falls first, making it Kaname's victory. He tells him to finish him off, but Kaname tells him to die of some disease or whatever, and that he has no interest in killing others. Just then, Rin comes from behind with her gun aimed at the florist's head. She asks him for information on the number of rings in the building, and he tells her that there should be around 24 rings in there. After that, she asks him if he knew that the leader of the 8th clan was also participating in the event. She says that majority of the strong players have already collected all the rings in the area, and the first stage of the event is coming to an end. This means that soon the 8th clan would attack them for their rings, and as they have exhausted themselves here, they won't be able to defend or fight back. To give them all a chance, she suggests that they form an improvised clan to fight against the 8th clan for better chances at survival. After forming their ransack clan, they lie down to get some rest and recover their sigils. Kaname sleeps for 3 hours while Hiraji sets up more barricades to keep others out. After Kaname wakes up, they all gather on a single floor and decide to talk to ghosts. They offer him 3 rings and let him loose in exchange for the promise to not be hostile towards them for the event. At first, they offer him to join their clan, but he refuses to team up with the plant dude who brainwashed him. He asks about the other two players with him, and they say that they gave them 3 rings and let them go with their wounds. With all of that done and dusted, they start talking about their plan to fight against the 8th clan, and Ghost becomes furious hearing their name. He says that he might join their clan after all to get back at Wang. Kaname also shares that Shuka will soon be there to join them at the hotel, making their clan 5 men strong. Meanwhile, Wang and his gang decide to go full bang on this hotel shebang and get their fangs in the Solo News sissy-ass gang and get their 20-ring bands. While you all think about what I just said in that line, let me explain what he plans to do. Wang decides to wait until nightfall to launch a full-scale attack with over 20 members of his clan, including some who are not part of the event, to take down the players in the hotel and get all their rings. So far, he has collected over 32 rings with the help of his clan members, and he wants to get over 50 rings to become the champion of the event and get the rumored special privileges for that title. Back at the hotel, Kaname and the others gather around a table and discuss their plan. They will split the rings equally, with half the points going to the florist because he did most of the heavy lifting in this stage. Besides that, they will wait for the 8th to attack them, and then they will intercept them when they go for the rings. The Ghost takes off his helmet and reveals his name to be Ryuji. He says that he wants to get back at Wang's greedy ass as they have some history together, and then asks if they will even fall for this plan. Rin says that they will come for sure, but even if they don't, it will be a win for them, as they have all the rings required for them right there. After that, she says that something about the rules of this event bothers her, as the points are not allocated based on the preciousness of the stones, and it looks really unnatural. Besides that, in the rules there is no mention of rings being the treasure in this treasure hunt or what is required to clear the event, which means that the real treasure is something else. Ryuji says that they should talk about it after dealing with the 8th, and then asks Kaname about Shuka, and if she wasn't going to come meet them soon. He says that she should be arriving soon and checks his messages, but becomes scared when he gets a message from her asking for help. Back at the Shibuya station, we see Shuko walking in the underground station as a white-haired girl follows after her without getting noticed. She scans the area for rings but finds none. She thinks that there could be some blind spots still and continues walking in as she feels that someone is watching her. Just then, she gets attacked by some water, but she dodges in time and wonders if it's someone's sigil. She starts running for the exit and finds the white-haired kid standing there. She attacks them with her chains, but the water in front of them freezes, stopping her attack. She then uses her chains as a drill to get through it, but the kid freezes that as well, taking her chains away. She then runs back to the other exit, but water starts flooding the station and she eventually gets drowned before sending a message to Kaname for help. Back at Kaname's end, he decides to go help her and Ryuji joins him with his gun. Shuka says that she will help them from the rooftop as a sniper while the florist will hold the fort. Kaname and Ryuji walk out and note that Shuka's location is just 5 minutes away from them on foot, so they start walking towards her carefully with no rings in their hands. They note that there are only 168 players left of the original 300, and that this feels like some fancy event with all of Shibuya to themselves with normies around. Kaname tells Ryuji about his sigil and says that he can only copy basic weaponry, and some items and complex items like smartphones and cars are out of his power. He then asks him why he is playing the game and what's his sigil, and Ryuji replies that he is in it to win it, with money being his goal, and that his sigil is trash, which allows him to see if someone is lying or not. He then curses Riot for their balancing issues, and they eventually reach near the underground station and find the white-haired kid from earlier. Ryuji tells them to stop hiding and come out in the open, or else the weirdo beside him will throw a grenade at them. The kid walks out, and Kaname notes that they look even younger than Rin. Meanwhile, speaking of Rin, she finds a QR code on the ring and scans it with her phone to get a number code. The florist walks up as well, and they scan all the rings to find different numbers, while some of the rings have the same codes on them. They think about it and decide that the real treasure of this event is something else, and they will need all types of rings to get the full code to unravel this mystery. On the other hand, the kid tells Ryuji that they don't have any weapons and they won't attack them. Ryuji confirms that they are speaking the truth, and they walk past them to the underground station. The kid tells them to not go in there as it might be dangerous, and Ryuji notes that she is hiding something from them as she definitely knows about something dangerous down there. After they get to the staircase, they note that the whole place is flooded, and Kaname decides to go after Shuka and tells Ryuji that if he doesn't come back in 5 minutes, he can give his rings to the kid and go back to the hotel. Once he's gone, Ryuji points his gun at the kid and tells them that they have lied once already and he doesn't want to have the blood of a kid on his hands. He tells them to tell him everything they know about the water in the station, but the kid uses their sigil and attacks him with the water from a fire hydrant on the roadside, and then freezes his trigger and runs away. But Ghost decides to chase after them as he's sure that they have something to do with the flood and that they must have some important information. The kid runs inside a building and hides themselves, and turns out they have multiple personality disorder. It's the body of a girl named Sui, and she shares it with the soul of her brother Shota. Shota has the ice sigil while Sui has the water sigil. She doesn't want to kill anyone, but Shota is more of a realist and knows that they must get the rings if they want to survive this event. Ghost tells them to come out as he wants to talk to them, but Shota says, "Sure dude, we ain't falling for that," and starts talking to Sui about defeating the guy. She agrees to help him and uses her sigil to move the water in the sewers beside him. But Ghost dodges the ice spikes just in time and starts shooting at random to lure them out. Shota comes up with a plan and uses his phone as bait to lure Ghosts inside the store. He walks up to the drinks aisle and finds the phone on the ground. He wonders what the kid is thinking, but then suddenly gets drenched in water from the bottles and gets frozen in ice instantly. Shota walks up to him and says that it is the end, but then Sui stops his hand and says that she doesn't want to live if it means that she will have to kill someone else. Meanwhile, Kaname is swimming in the cold water and comes across the ice wall that is trapping Shuka. He makes a hole in the walk with his gun, and then uses his app to find Shuka and saves her by swimming above the water surface. He tries to bring her back to her senses, but she is out cold. He wonders what he should do and then tries to perform CPR on her, and this finally brings her back online. When she wakes up, she kisses Kaname for saving her and thanks him for coming. After that, she tells him that she is playing this game to avenge her parents and to kill their murderer. Besides that, she wants to also find and punish the creator of this game for playing with people's lives. Kaname agrees and says that he's glad that she shares some of the same goals as him, including the idea to screw the creator of this stupid game. After that, he uses his sigil to create chains for her, and she uses her powers to break them out of the underground station. Soon night falls, and Wang is preparing bombs and weapons alongside more men to invade the hotel. While making preparations, he also scans the QR code on the rings and wonders how the game is won. Just then, the second stage of the event begins with more rings appearing on the map, and Wang decides to finally launch his attack on the hotel. With new rings spawning on the map, including some diamonds and emeralds, everyone gets back into action and fights start breaking out all over the place. Kaname messages Rin about the situation, and she tells him about the QR codes and asks him to send her the code of the emerald ring they got from Sui. Kaname does just that, and Rin says that she will get the code for the diamond ring to get the full code. Meanwhile, Shuka and Sui confront each other, and Sue apologizes for her actions. She reveals that she is dropping out of this fighting thing, and that she doesn't want to live so badly as to kill others. Shuka tests her claims with an attack, but then forgives her because her shenanigans brought her and Kaname closer. Talk about being a masochistic pervert. After that, Sui uses her sigil to dry their clothes and tells them that she is pretty bad at using her powers and that her brother is more proficient at using his ice sigil. Hearing all this, Shuka decides to invite Sui to their clan and says that she doesn't need to fight or kill others if she doesn't want to, and she can help them out by doing laundry and cleaning stuff. Spoken just like a true slave owner, Sui accepts the invitation and their clan starts taking a good shape. Ghost says that he is fine with everything as long as he gets to snuff out Wang. Kaname looks at him and tells him to not forget that their primary goal is to survive and not to murder Wang, and he should remember that. He even wonders what they should do from now on, and then gets Rian's message with the final code. He tells Shuka that they will be ditching all their rings and will go after the real treasure of the game in a bid to end this event and win it. He relays the plan to Rin and tells them to escape from the hotel and join them. Back at the hotel, Rin tells Haraji about Kaname's plan and says that she will be going because there's no chance they can take on 20 to 30 members of the 8th all on their own. Haraji says that he has a young daughter about her age who is really sick. He needs a lot of money for her medical expenses, and so he will clear the game with the rings that are worth confirmed points rather than some probability of some treasure. He lets her leave and stays at the hotel with all the 20 rings and lays out more traps for the barbarians downstairs. Wang's men walk in and start attacking the plants with some bombs as their newest member Sig leads them with his fire-manipulating sigil. He says that they will take the staircase instead of the elevators as they would be rigged with traps, but says that that would have been the case if he wasn't there. After that, he steps inside an elevator and says that he will test it out and they can follow after him once he clears the traps on the way. While inside the elevator, he gets attacked by some plant vines from the roof, but he uses his sigil to roast them all and turn them into cooked vegetables. After reaching the upper floors, he scans the area and notices that they have scattered all the rings on these floors and perhaps ditched the place for their lives. He sends a message back to his clanmates and tells them to take the same elevator up and that it's already a wrap. His men decide to take 2 elevators to go up together, but as soon as the other elevator comes down, they get surprised as Haraji walks out in his woody armor and starts beating them like a maniac. He grabs one of them and tells everyone else to tell him where Wang was, but they turn out to be brain-dead idiots and blow each other up without caring for their lives. Ultimately, Hiraji defeats them all and gets back on the elevator to deal with Sig upstairs. Sig wonders what's taking his pals so long, but then gets surprised to see Hiraji come up in the elevator all bloody and armored up. He charges his fire sigil, and they both prepare to fight each other. Meanwhile, Rin manages to escape safely and starts running towards Kaname and the others. On her way, she wonders about the goal of the admin of the game and if they have stopped worrying about making normies learn about their game with this large-scale event. With that thought put aside, she thinks about the codes that she got from all the rings. She thinks that at first she got trouble finding the relation between the codes, but eventually came to the conclusion that they must be sorted in order based on the hardness of the gems. The clue was Ruby and Sapphire having the same number, and after arranging them as such, the code reveals the coordinates for the center of this event, the Shibuya Station. This means that the real treasure must be hidden somewhere inside there. Back at the hotel, Hiraji thinks back on the information he got on the members of the 8th clan from Rin. She told him to beware of 2 members, namely Ki and Sig, who have a telekinetic power and the power to control flames. In Sig's case, he's a rare pyromancer who can engulf his own body in high-degree flames, making him the hardest to deal with using his plant-based sigil. Hiraji tries to fight him head-on, but Sig nullifies his attacks by punching him hard with his fiery punch burning through his armor. Hiraji starts running away while trying to slow him down with some barricades, but Sig simply zooms through them as if they weren't even there. He then decides to lure him into a trap with grenades hidden inside some vines, but before he can set them off, Ki flies in from the window behind him using his telekinetic sigil and punches him hard, sending him back towards Sig. Meanwhile, Sag prepares a strong hot punch and rips Hiraji a new hole, letting him join the glorious ranks of people like Ace, Obito, Rengoku, and others. With his organs destroyed, he falls on the ground as Sig meets up with Ki and thanks him for helping him out. But just then, Hiraji uses the power of fatherly love and brings himself back to life by making his vines pump his heart and sets the bomb trap off. He uses this as a distraction to escape, but only makes it till downstairs. Ki protects Sig and himself with his powers, and then they both walk down to see where the gardener went. They don't have to look for him for long as they find him taking his last breaths by the staircase, but in his final moments he tells them that he's happy that he will get to see their dead asses and uses his plants to make the whole building collapse. In the meantime, at the Shibuya Station, Rin notes that there are over 20 people in the building and says that it's natural for that many to be there as it is the center of this event. Besides that, even if someone else knows about the codes, she is the only one who has the Diamond Ring's code. She sneaks in and decides to look for the treasure on her own, but decides against it as soon as she sees Wang and some 20 men of his searching the area. With less than 98 players left in the game, she notes that he must have called for clan members outside of the game. There is no way for her to look for the treasure with them around. Despite all this, she trusts in her clanmates and decides to look for more information anyways. She sneaks in and keeps moving forward, but then gets quite literally snuffed out by one of the clan members with the sigil of a wolf's nose. He smells the girl, and I know every single one of you watching is wondering how that feels, you perverts. Anyways, Rin uses her sigil to run away from them and makes her way past many people and eventually puts some distance between them by jumping the train tracks. After that, she starts running upstairs and uses her ability to run away, but to her surprise, Wang suddenly appears in front of her out of nowhere and he captures her immediately. He asks her about everything she knows about the treasure, but she says that she knows nothing and that she doesn't even have a ring to give him. He looks at her like your typical anime villain and then reminds of her position by breaking her left arm. He asks her again, and Rin says that she will speak and starts telling him about some ancient Chinese poison stuff where they put venomous creatures in a pot and let them duke it out until only one survives, and that is supposed to be the most poisonous of them all. She then tells him if it doesn't remind him of himself as the king of venom, but apparently Wang isn't a Marvel fan and he becomes angry and says that he will cut her fingers one by one until she tells him everything she knows about the event's treasure. Just then, Shuka's chain strikes above them with a flash grenade and it stuns everyone there, letting her rescue Rin and bring her to their side. She thanks Kaname and the others for coming to her rescue, and they all stand face to face against Wang and his clan. Kaname says that they have important information on the event and they would like to negotiate with them, or they can choose to fight and die. Wang and his pals start laughing at their proposal and say that the 8th clan only takes and takes, and they would kill them all and leave one to spit out everything they know. With that, they all start fighting each other as Ryuga starts firing at them with his machine gun, and they all fight back as well. Rin takes Kaname and runs off to find the treasure while Shuka and Sui pair up to call their numbers and freeze them all right there. Just then, Wang suddenly appears in front of Shuka mid-air and breaks her chains, but Ryuga comes in clutch and starts shooting at him and says that his real opponent is right here. He knows that Wang's ability lets him teleport in a 5-meter radius, and he can cut anything within a meter as well. This means that he is like a swordsman with the ability to close a 5-meter gap instantly, so if he fights from a distance of 10 meters or more, he will have the advantage. Wang finds him too annoying for a side character and sends some of his men to distract him and to make him reload. Just then, he uses his ability and instantly appears in front of him and cuts off his hand, making him a lefty for life. Meanwhile, Kaname runs around with Rin and tells her to focus on cracking the code and figuring out where the real treasure is. He gives Rin some space to think, and after racing her mind for a while, uses her ability's deep search feature and becomes Einstein. After gazing deep inside her soul and blabbering some nerdy jargon, she eventually cracks it and finds out what the code means and where the treasure is. After that, outside the station, Wang is preparing to make sashimi and finger liquor out of Ryuga. Ryuga thinks that he won't let himself be humiliated like that and would self-destruct with Wang and put an end to them both. But just before anything can happen, Kaname arrives on the scene and tells Wang to stop. He shows him a key and says that he knows where the treasure is and that he wants to exchange the key for his safety. Wang looks at him and reminds him that the only deals that they make includes take and take, so they won't allow him to leave from there alive. Ryuve uses his sigil and finds out that Kaname is lying and is just bluffing to make Ryuga pay attention to him. He thinks that it won't work and Wang must pay as he is the one who killed his younger brother. Wang tells him that he doesn't believe him, but Kaname piques his interest by pointing his gun at the key and saying that he will destroy it unless he accepts his proposal. Wang says that he doesn't care, but Ryuva notes that Wang is actually interested and is lying. He says that Kaname could be lying, and Kaname says that he will have to take his word for it, and that he found out about the treasure by cracking the code from the rings. Initially, the rings point them to the Shibuya station, but they need the code of the diamond ring to find out where the treasure is hidden in there. He says that incidentally, the code of the diamond ring is 888,001. When you break it in 2 halves, it becomes apparent that the 888 refers to the statue of Hachiko near the station, as Hachi means 8. He confirmed this by checking the statue and finding this key there. After that, he wondered what the key could have been for, and after thinking about the code, he realized that it must be for a Seiki deposit box at the National Bank Branch 001. While Kaname explains the code to Wang, Ryume uses his sigil and finds out that Kaname pulled that story right out of his ass, and there's not a single piece of truth in it. But the question is if Wang would buy it. Meanwhile, Wang wonders if all this is true because it sounds plausible, but he has no proof to back it up. He then thinks about the billions of yen's worth of rewards from the rings and wonders what the treasure could be for it. Must make all this look like change in comparison. Besides that, there's also the rumor about getting a special privilege for winning the event, and he becomes interested in it. He tells Kaname that he would accept his proposal, but he will only spare his life, and Ryuga is out of that deal. Kaname says that that's fine with him as he only teamed up with him for the event and it doesn't matter to him if he lives or dies. Hearing this, Wang starts laughing and tells Ryuga that he was worthless till the end. However, Ryuga knows the truth that Kaname was lying thanks to his sigil. He notes that he must be creating an opening for him to take down Wang and thanks him internally. Just then, Kaname throws the key towards Wang and says that if he doesn't trust him, he can check the key out himself. Wang doesn't think about anything and walks forward to catch the key, but Kaname says that it was all a lie and that's just the key to his scooter, and we find out that the real code was for the locker beside him, and Kaname uses this moment to open it and ends the game by finding the treasure. Once the event is cleared, everyone is teleported away from the location, making them unable to move, leaving only Kaname behind with a box inside the locker. He finally takes a sigh of relief and opens the box only to find his smartphone inside it. The phone suddenly starts ringing and he picks it up to find one of the admins of the D-game on the other side. The guy introduces himself as the interface builder for the app and says that he's sort of a middleman and tells him about the rewards that he earned for completing the stage. First of all, he earned 10,000 points as the base reward, with half of them distributed among his friends. He earned an additional 1,237 points for his survival, bringing his total to 6,237 points. For the record, that's equal to almost 4.2 million US dollars. Besides these points, the host says that Kaname gets the privilege to make one of his wishes be granted by him, but impossible things like bringing the dead back to life or becoming immortal are out of the question. He immediately tells him that he wants to quit the game, but the host doesn't allow it, with the reason being that it works against his own interest. Velvet tells him of the 2 ways to reasonably quit the game, which are completing it or by killing him and deleting the game altogether. After hearing all this, Kaname thinks about what he can ask for that will help him get through this game without having to kill or getting killed by others. Some kind of deterrent for others to join the game, and then prepare to make his request. After hearing him out, the host agrees to grant his request and says that as a parting gift, he will give him the name of his sigil, which is Fire God of Iron. After that, he wishes him luck and teleports him as well. 2 months later, the news channels cover up the incident as some kind of terrorist bombing that was responsible for the damage in the area and say that they still don't know what actually happened. Besides that, Kaname and his other friends haven't come to school in 2 months, and Fat Boy Yoda wonders where they all went. He decides to pay Kaname a visit later to make plans for summer vacation. Back at Shuka's mansion, she tells Sui a story about 3 piglets who left their parents and decided to live separately in different houses. The youngest made his house out of straw, and a wolf came by and ripped his brokey house to pieces and ate the pig. Next up, it went to the second pig who had made a house out of wood, so he set it on fire and then ate the roasted pig inside. Finally, he went to the brick house with a massive hammer and broke through the walls and ate the last big one as well. Sui notes the moral of the story that no matter what, if you are a pig, you will get eaten alive, so don't be a pig. Shuka says that she's wrong, and the real moral of the story is that if they are looking to get a house, they should make it out of weak stuff like straw, wood, or bricks, but get a real modern building to call their castle. While we all wonder what kind of story that was, they start looking for buildings to buy for their clan and wonder if they should go and get rid of the 8th clan after all because they might prove troublesome in future. Meanwhile, Haraju's daughter is visited by a man from the insurance company who gives her a check for 300 million yen and pays his condolences for the death of her father. She refuses to accept that as a fact and tells him to go away. The man walks out and runs into Rin and asks her if she would be kind enough to introduce him to Kaname, but she says that she is not his personal manager or something and he can go see him at his clan himself. After he leaves, Haraju's daughter rushes out and accidentally pushes Rin on the ground. She apologizes to her and then tells her about the insurance guy. Rin introduces herself as an information broker called the Analyst and says that if she wants to know anything about her father, she can contact her. After that, Haraju's daughter, Suzume, shows her the check and asks if it's real. She tells her to take it to a bank and see it for herself, and for anyone wondering, it's about $2 million. On the other hand, at the Danjo Boxing Club, Ryuga gets himself patched up and grows his hand back thanks to Keed, who is the wife of the club owner Danjo. Danjo says that it was part of the deal he made with Kaname and then says that his club is a normal kickboxing dojo, but there are about 26 D-game players in it as well. Besides that, his reason for joining the game was to gain the powers of a sigil, and now he's strong enough to take down tanks, Ifigs one by one. After that, they walk up to Kaname, who is looking a bit jacked now. Inukai is helping him with his training, and Danjo tells him that he has completed their agreement to heal Ryuga and help him grow stronger, so now they can talk about the proposal that he brought 2 months ago. Kaname says that he is fine with that and says that as the clan leader, he wants to officially form an alliance between their clans. Danjo says that he is fine with his goals and ethics, but an alliance demands that both parties benefit from it, so he wants to fight him one-on-one to see if he is worthy of forming an allegiance with. For once, Kaname feels excited about a fight and accepts the challenge. Meanwhile, Yoda goes to Kaname's house to meet him but finds Ki of the 8th clan there. Ki asks him if he is Kaname's friend and says that he would like to talk to him for a while. Back at the boxing club, Danjo and Kaname prepare to face off against each other in an underground arena. It turns out Danjo is the rank 4 player on the D-game ranking ladder, and he won one of the major events and got the privilege to hold exhibition matches with sigils in exchange for points at his dojo. He seems like a good guy, but he wants to make sure that Kaname is a worthy ally and starts their no-limitations duel. The only rules are that they should keep the damage to the building to the minimum and to not kill each other intentionally. With that, Kaname begins the match by activating his sigil and to create a machine gun, but Danjo charges in like a bull and tries to bury him in the ground with a heavy punch from above. Kaname jumps back to dodge the attack and remembers how Piccolo trained Gohan. With that, he starts fighting back by throwing a few hand grenades at him, but Danjo tanks through them like a Giga Chad and comes out of the smoke with another heavy punch that shatters the floor beneath them. He keeps running away and tries to shoot him back with a handgun, but Danjo closes the distance between them and tries to punch his gun away. Kaname responds by creating a blade and tries to strike him back. Danjo jumps back and asks if that was his secret weapon, and Kaname replies that he got a lot more from where that came from. After that, he creates a Scorpion submachine gun and starts shooting at him relentlessly. Danjo takes cover behind a cement pillar and compliments him for his versatility. Meanwhile, the audience includes Inukai, Keed, Ryuga, and Rin. Rin notes how Kaname has grown so strong in such little time, and Ryuga says that he wasn't just resting his ass either while his hand healed, and he introduced Kaname to an arms dealer to get his hands on those weapons. Turns out, Rin knows all about it and says that while that's good and all, Kaname has used up all his cards while Danjo is yet to even activate his sigil. Just then, Danjo rushes behind a massive stone block. He picks it up and starts running forward with it as a shield and throws it at Kaname to put him down. Kaname falls down and Danjo uses this chance to get on top of him and says that it's the end, but he creates a grenade in his hand and says that he will blow both of them up. This makes Danjo loosen his grip and activates his sigil, which makes his body super hard. Suddenly, the grenade goes off, revealing itself to be a flash bomb. Kaname uses this chance to get away from him and then points his guns at his head, saying he's ready for more. Danjo gets up and says that he acknowledges Kaname as an equal and agrees to form an alliance, but then says that it looks like they are both willing to have some more fun in this fight. Just then, a girl with a fox mask suddenly appears in front of them and cuts both of them down. Kaname thinks that that's it for him, but then everything seems normal. Danjo seems to recognize her as the rank 1 player, Liu, and says that it was her energy sword attack. Liu says that she likes Kaname and won a bet on him during the last major event. She says that she has decided to take him for herself and simply kidnaps him from the dojo by rendering his friends unconscious with her energy sword technique. After this incident, Rin and Ryuga walk back to Shuka's house and tell her and Sui about everything. Being the Damimani she is, she says that she ain't having any of this BS, and they will go and rescue their leader, and that she is the only one who can have Kaname as her slave/pet. They all agree and start chasing after them thanks to the search feature on Shuka's phone. On the other hand, inside Liu's car, she has Kaname's hands tied up and tells him that she wants to train him to become a great assassin because she thinks that there is great potential in him. After that, she looks down and says that she comes from a 2,000-year-old clan of assassins. Recently, her clan has been looking for a successor, and she won't mind marrying him for that matter. Kaname thinks she's crazy and says that she must be stupid to think that he will accept such a proposal. Shuka is crazy enough for him to deal with in a lifetime after all. The rich-looking old man from earlier turns out to be her butler, Simon, and he tells her that it looks like they are being chased. Liu uses Kaname's phone to call Shuka and tells him to tell them to withdraw as she's sure he knows that they can't defeat her. She puts the phone near his mouth and to her surprise, he tells them to ram the car into them or whatever, but to make the car stop no matter what. Liu says that she didn't expect him to be the kind who doesn't know when to quit, but it's not something that she dislikes. Kaname says that he has come so far without killing anyone and there's no way that he would take orders from someone who only knows how to kill others. He then tells her that he would join her clan or become her husband or whatever if she manages to come out of this situation without killing any of his clan, Sunset Ravens, members. Meanwhile, Shuka and the others drive closer to their car and Rin tries to shoot Theratire down with her sniper, but they prove to be bulletproof and she says that they will have to ram into them after all. She then tells Sui to start a clan battle against Liu to use the D-Game's concealment mode and they start getting close to them. Shuka climbs on top of the car with her chains and prepares to engage, but Liu responds by coming out and getting on the car's roof as well. She starts attacking her, but Liu stops her with her energy sword. But to her surprise, Shuka immediately recovers from the death state induced by the technique and continues fighting her. Liu deflects all her chain attacks using her sword and they both stand back after dueling to a stalemate. After that, they both continue fighting each other and Shuka manages to make Liu fall off the roof, but it turns out that Liu did it purposefully to plant a weapon in Shuka's car and make the tire stop spinning. Ryuba tries to get the car back in control, but they start losing distance. Shuka jumps up, but it looks like she won't make it, but then Kaname comes in clutch and throws a couple of liquid-filled containers at her. Shuka uses her chains to explode them, and Shota uses his sigil and freezes Liu's tire and makes it explode. Both cars stop, and the passengers walk out. Kaname declares his victory, but Liu asks if that's right because she's right there and Shuka is hanging in the distance. But then Simon speaks up and says that they have lost because their car is broken, and if he goes to change the tire, Shuka would be free to move and Liu won't be able to take Kaname without having to kill her. Liu feels a bit disappointed but accepts it and declares the Sunset Raven's victory. Kaname then tells her to form an alliance with his clan if she wants to work with him, and she says that she doesn't remember ever promising anything like that. After that, she says that she will join his clan instead and judge for herself if he's a man worthy of her. Obviously, no one is happy about it, especially Shuka. But our man, Kaname, allows it on the condition that if she would ever betray them, she would betray him first before harming any other members of the clan. Liu promises, and just like that, Sunset Ravens gain Liu and Simon as their new members. Talk about being an OP harem. Meanwhile, Wang and his clan have got their hands on Yoda and have stripped him of his ability to play guitar by cutting off all his fingers. They make a video message and send it to Kaname and tell him to come meet them or else his friend will lose the ability to walk next. Kaname receives the video and completely loses his mind. He thinks that he is responsible for poor Yoda's abduction and now he has lost all his fingers. How will he ever be able to get a girlfriend now? He starts hitting the wall while enraged, but Ryuga calms him down and tells him to think about it rationally. They send Rin to gather info about Wang's hideout and she gets them scouted by her friend Kotori from the Icy Crown clan. Kotori reveals that they are hiding in a warehouse near the bay and have about 12 to 15 members left. Among them, the leader Wang and Ki are notable sigil users, while there was no sign of the flame demon Sig. Rin wonders if Haraji took down Sig after all, and then goes back to their base to formulate a plan. Before she leaves, instead of points, Kotori asks for a request and says that she wants to join their clan. Rin says that she doesn't think it would be right, but that she will pass on the request to the leader anyways. Later that morning, Wang waits for Kaname to arrive and looks at his fat friend crying on the floor with his fingerless hands. He says he knows that Kaname is a softie who won't let anyone else die on his account, so it doesn't even matter if the fatso is some stranger who doesn't even know him. Suddenly, one of the clan members arrives and tells him that they are surrounded by cops and the SWAT team. Wang wonders why the cannon fodder is here and sends Ki out to deal with them all. After that, he himself goes to the back entrance and makes sashimi out of the cops trying to sneak in from behind. Meanwhile, Shuka follows the plan and silently drops a phone in front of Yoda. Kaname is on the call on the other side and tells him to click on the link to join Darwin's game, and to do it even if he has to use his tongue, nose, or feet. Yoda tries but ends up accidentally cutting the call. After that, he tries more and finally manages to click the link and gets a sigil of his own. It turns out to be OP power to move things using his mind, and he uses it to set himself free. Soon, one of the clan members walks up to him to shoot him down as per Wang's orders, but Yoda throws him around like a rag doll and thinks that Kaname must have wanted him to use this power to escape. He starts wreaking havoc inside until Wang walks in and shows him who's the real boss. At the same time, Kaname thinks that Yoda failed to do anything and decides to ram the car inside the building and rescue him with force. They drop Rin and Sui off and start driving straight at the front door, but then stop with Ki standing there. Turns out they have Inukai on their side as well for backup, and gets off and says that he will take Ki on himself. With that, Ryuga and Kaname walk in to rescue Yoda. Outside, Inukai faces off against Ki and reveals that he knows everything about him and that he was a semifinalist in an All-Japan Karate Championship, and he would have won as well if he didn't accidentally kill his opponent during the match. He then says that today he has killed so many cops and he doesn't know why a person like him would decide to play the role of Wang's lapdog. Ki says that he won't understand how great of a man Wang is and explains that after that accident happened, he was viewed as a criminal by his opponent's family. He quit karate, the pain never went away, and that was when Wang helped him. He came to him and enlightened him with his wisdom from the Wang Chang's Sashimi Guide 101 and told him that he was in pain because he had only killed one man, and in situations like these he should kill more and that death dilutes death. And then when he started D-game, his pain and agony went away just like Wang had told him. Talk about having bricks for brains. After listening to his dumb ask, Ki notes that his IQ dropped by 2 points and he decides to just get into the fight already. He challenges him officially using the game app and starts the fight with a kick, but Ki blocks it with a force field punch. Inukai jumps back and wonders just how strong this guy is, and then wears his goggles and activates his own sigil. Turns out his sigil is super speed, so he wears his goggles and goes full XLR8 on Ki's ass with his fast martial arts combos. Meanwhile, Rin takes down some of the clan members and guides Sui to use her sigil and move water from the ocean so Shota can freeze the remaining members with ice. After dealing with the cannon fodder outside, they move towards Point B, and it looks like they will have a complete victory over the 8th clan this time. While all this is happening outside, Kaname and Ryuga come face to face against Wang and some of his men. They ask him where Yoda was, and Wang says that he had already sent his friend back. He then tells him to turn around and look. Kaname turns around and finds a box behind him with blood coming out of it. He opens the box with a dreadful expression only to find Yoda's cut-off ass stuffed inside it. He starts crying for his friend and then remembers all the people who died on his watch. He suddenly stops crying and Wang thinks that he has finally broken him. He walks back and tells his men to finish them off as it's not fun anymore, but then Kaname suddenly turns back and shoots his man down with a gun, marking it as his first direct kill in the series so far. This surprises everyone, and Kaname says that at first he thought that everyone in the game was forced to kill because they would die otherwise, but in reality Wang and his people were just human garbage who would kill others regardless of if they are playing the game or not. With that realization, he lets go of his soft nature and coldly shoots down a couple of other men before telling Wang to come to his senses and fight seriously. Wang gets annoyed with his confident expression and jumps straight at him with his ability, but gets stabbed in his back by Shuka. She says that he is a one-trick pony who only knows how to fight with the same rundown combo and lures him out on the roof. Meanwhile, Wang's men surround them with guns, but Kaname is wearing his plot armor right now, and we all know what that means for NPCs on the other side. He utterly butchers them like farm animals and then lets Ryuga finish off anyone left. This is one of the most prominent moments where we see the potential as an assassin inside Kaname that Lu spoke off. On the other hand, Shupa jumps inside the warehouse and hides away from Wang. Wang comes down and calls her out by bad-mouthing Kaname. Hearing him spit out his disgusting fantasies, Shuka walks out and asks him if his mom crapped him out and forgot to flush the toilet. Watching her stand in front of him, Wang says that he has done his fair share of research on her as well, and that she is a rancor like himself. He says that Sigil allows her to control her chains and then jumps forward to attack her head-on. Shuka attacks him with her chains, but he simply cuts them down with his sigil. But then instead of going forward, he falls face first on the ground and looks down to notice his leg chopped off lying on the floor. He starts crying like a bitch and says that he will kill her, and then uses his teleportation technique and appears behind Shuka. He then uses his sigil to kill her by chopping her neck, but instead falls back with his own hand on the floor and wonders just what happened. He starts racing his mind and thinks if it's some bug in the game or if she has some new sigil that is superior to his own space-cutting sigil. Shupa turns around and asks him if he's ready to lose the last 2 limbs he has left, and he notices that the whole warehouse is covered in wire traps. Shuka reveals that she had set up these thin, strong wires in advance, and it was Wang himself who cut his limbs off by getting near her. He says that it's not possible to cut through bones with wires, and she says that it's true, but her sigil is the ability to control any wire-like material, including threads and her chains, and she used it to vibrate the strings, like an electric jigsaw, to cut through him like butter. After that, she binds him with wires and asks him if he is ready to die, but Wang uses his secret move and switches places with Shuka, making her come into the wires, letting himself free. But turns out it doesn't matter because she is the one holding the ends of the wires, and to punish his dumbass, she cuts off his other leg as well. With only one hand left and Shuka walking towards him to chop him up, he uses his sigil full force and for the first time in his life, manages to teleport up in the sky to 100 meters. He then uses his ability again to break his fall and celebrates that he is the main character of the game after all and has managed to escape death. But then he looks up with dread as Ryuga and Kaname walk up to him and ask him if he's ready to die. Wang starts pissing his pants and says that he accepts defeat and sends over 1,800 points to Kaname. Unfortunately for him, Kaname says that it's nowhere near enough for him to let him go alive and reveals that he used his privilege to get access to a special poker feature which allows him to bet his chips on a fight and change his bet at any point during the match. He then explains that it works like poker, where if he makes an all-in bet, his opponents are compelled to match it, and for this battle, he won over 8,000 points, which means that his clan is screwed. He receives all the points from all 8th clan members, making them completely broke. And as we all know that in Darwin's theory, evolution is a thing, and in this day, an age money speaks. With no points left at all, his whole clan loses the game and all of them get teleported to hell piece by piece. A few days later, after all these shenanigans, the Sunset Ravens buy a huge building for their clan and start conquering the surrounding areas as their turf. They take over all of Wang's territory and even small areas from nobodies and declare that anyone who plays Darwin's game on their turf will be killed by them. They only kill if necessary and leave violators alive with lifelong injuries to spread their message, and soon their influence extends beyond Shibuya and spreads over the whole Kanto region. This is Kaname and Shuka's first step towards putting an end to this crazy game, and they decide to keep growing until they find the creator of this game and put a bullet in his head. And just like that, Season 1 of Darwin's Game comes to an end.